guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about something that has personally changed my life. I have a guest on today. I'm so excited about this guest. But this topic today is something, like I said, that not only personally changed my life, but recently created quite the buzz on social media. I posted a reel that overnight exploded with a ton of comments and questions and things that I wanted to make sure I answered for you. The topic is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So I have a hyperbaric chamber at my house. Now, before I get started and before I introduce you to the guest, I mean, if you're watching, you can see her right now, depending on how we edit this. But to be honest, a year ago, and a lot of you guys might be listening and you might not have any idea what a hyperbaric oxygen or hyperbaric chamber is, or HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is. You're not alone. A year and a half ago, I had no clue what it was. I think I had heard about it. I had seen the machine that just was this massive tube that looked terrifying to lay in, right? And it wasn't until 2023 was a very rough year for me personally, my family, that led into 2024. And in 2024, there were 3 different doctors that strongly recommended a hyperbaric chamber for me and for my family. First of all, I was dealing with a ton of different health issues, some systemic inflammation. I wasn't feeling like myself. I had swollen lymph nodes. I was just trying to figure out, if you remember from that time, what was happening in my body. I couldn't figure it out. I was posting on social media. Secondly, I had gone to Aimee clinics. If you don't know who Dr. Daniel Aimee is, he is a world-renowned brain doctor. So in my kind of quest for overall health, I decided to get my brain checked to see, hey, maybe some of this medical stuff is anxiety that I'm actually feeling. I don't know. So I had these amazing brain scans done at Dr. Daniel Amen's clinics, which I highly recommend. They do a holistic approach. And the result, or the prescription, strong suggestions from the doctor, was that I do hyperbaric chamber or hyperbaric oxygen therapy to help regulate and heal parts of my brain. And they had case study after case study showing how effective this was in traumatic brain injury, concussions, different brain issues that were happening. And then the third thing, without going into detail, one of my kids, middle of 2024, was given a really difficult diagnosis that severely affected my child's livelihood. So all of these things, and the doctor was like, hyperbarics, do it. And I'm like, I don't even know what this thing is. And I am not kidding you guys. The only way I can explain it is that it was a God thing, truly, because it is like when you put it out to the universe and everything that we need is already there. And the energy that we put out then attracts what it is that we need. And I got this random message from this woman named Aimee at Next Level Oxygen. And out of the kindness of her heart, she saw that I was struggling and basically just said, hey, I see what you're going through. How would you like to borrow a hyperbaric chamber for, I think no one knows you're here yet, for 6 months or so, or whatever it was, no strings attached. She said, you don't have to post about it, nothing, truly out of the kindness of her heart. And she didn't even know about my child that was going through what they were going through. So this was like a prayer answered. And I didn't even know what was happening, but she shows up at my house. She places this huge chamber in my home in August. And I literally had no room. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to fit this thing in. And to be honest, I didn't even use it for so many months. She showed us how to use it in August. And I think I went 5 months without using this chamber because I was terrified of it. And I wanted you to hear this because there were a lot of comments saying, I'm claustrophobic, this and that. So we're going to address this. And I know that these chambers, from the looks of it, can feel totally intimidating. I had a lot of fears too. So today, we're going to talk about all of it. I have Aimee here. Hi, Aimee.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. First of all, you're an expert. Second, and most importantly, this should have been first. You're now a friend, which has been really great. but you are an expert. And I know you have answers to all of these questions that people posted on Instagram. I think it blew up overnight, went to like 1.5 million views, right? And didn't your account get blocked, right?
Yeah, I almost got suspended just because I was trying to respond to people. So no cut and paste on the old Instagram.
Well,
Lesson learned.
you know, it's funny. What I realized about that post, random tangent, is like the day that you got almost banned, right?
Mhm.
The likes, the comments, and the views all stopped. So I honestly think Instagram halted it. It was like, like overnight went to 1.5 million. And then I'm like, what? They must have been like, hold on, like too much exposure here. But I love that you're here. I love that you're going to clear up some confusion on all of this. And I just want to say welcome to the podcast first and foremost. Thank you so much for being here, but also thank you for the gift that you have given our family.
Yeah.
Just
So
thank you.
it's funny to hear you tell your version of the story because my version of the story is similar, except, Heidi, for those of you on here, is someone that I have followed for a lot of years. There's a couple female, I would say, influencers in the fitness realm that are close to my age. I'm older, but I'm following and I'm watching their journey as they're getting older, right? And
Yeah.
I'm having those same experiences. And anyway, many of them are falling into what is this new wellness space, which is these modalities and how they work and how they optimize our body. Because while fitness holds a extremely important part to all of that. Cellular health is also really, really important. And so I'm watching this trend, right, with some of these people that I've always kind of followed and I'm seeing it happen. So for the viewers that are watching this, you may not remember this, but a couple times you mentioned like I'm doing this and this and this, and then there's this hyperbaric, and the words don't even roll off the tongue well. And I could tell you didn't know you didn't know. And that is like, I was like, no, please listen to me. Hello, Heidi. So I actually I reached out a few times, but it wasn't very many. I thought, shot in the dark, I'll try, I'll see. I don't know. So I think it probably was like only the second or third time I kind of maybe in big letters said, I promise I'm not a scam. Like, just let me talk to you for a minute, because here's the deal. Hyperbarics has a lot of unknowns around it, right? To the average person.
Yeah.
And that is some of the stuff we're going to talk about and clear up. But I wanted to make sure that you were doing it safely, that you did understand some of the protocols, that you really knew what it could do. And
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I knew at the time that Aimee was telling you to do this, but
No, you didn't.
yeah, as we got talking, Heidi has mentioned she did a brain scan. It's called a SPECT scan, and they're really interesting. Anybody should go Google Aimee and SPECT scans. You'll see all these crazy pictures of brains and little bits of like holes in them, basically, which is what they're talking about trying to heal. And so that is what that's just one of many, many things that you can look at to see what we're doing with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So anyway, it's just interesting. I'm grateful that I was able to kind of get in there, and then Heidi was open to it. Influencers, as we know, with big accounts, they're receiving stuff left and right all the time, and it's really, really messy, right? Sometimes to figure out what to follow and what not to do or whatever. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about it and really explain the ways in which people can take advantage of something like this. I do have my chamber right here. We'll mention it later. This is the same one that Heidi has as well. So I know people saw that particular video. Just wanted to point it out.
Yeah, yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, behind her, it's like this. And if you're not on YouTube, I'll explain it. But behind Aimee, there's this massive tube. There we go. Yep, there. The white tube. She actually has. You can't really see it right now, but like her little wellness room, you guys, look. There's a sauna to her left on her screen. It's to the right.
Yeah.
It's so
Shane's
cute
room.
in there. You have your hyperbaric chamber like on a beautiful like wooden pedestal thing. You have it turned sideways for easy in and out access. I actually saw a picture of yours and I'm like, oh, I want a room just like that. I really do. It's so pretty. And I know that as someone looks at that, they're like, oh my gosh, like automatic, there is fear that comes through their mind. So we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
I actually think I know what you're talking about when you said I had posted about a hyperbaric, but it was different. Like I was told that it was a hyperbaric chamber, but now that I think back, it wasn't. It like went up to my, or maybe it was, but it went to
Yeah.
my neck and it was
Well,
a sauna.
it could have been that, or one of the things I do want to touch on is that, again, when things get really popular,
Yeah.
everybody jumps on it, and
Yeah.
so the knockoffs, I'm going to call them knockoffs.
Mm.
There are other chambers out there that just aren't meeting safety standards, and so that's one of the things that we'll touch on. And so you may have even been looking at one of those, which could be a chamber coming in from China. A lot of them are, I mean, listen, I'm
Oh.
sure there's a chamber on Temu for $100. I would never tell anybody to
Yeah.
get that. Just because, at the end of the day, you do want to make sure that what you're getting is good quality.
Yeah.
It works. There's a warranty. Like, you know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for, right? We know that, whether it's
True.
just something small, like a phone or whatever. We think there's a great deal on something, all of a sudden it breaks right away. That's why we have the term lemon on cars. So
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
saw you going down that path, and just, again, not knowing what you didn't know. And that's one of
Yeah.
the hardest place to be in, because how do you even know how to start asking? So
Yeah. Yeah. I amen to that. Okay, so I do want to touch on fear, and then we'll kind of get into some of the details, because I don't, I want anyone who's sitting here right now listening or looking and saying I would never get in something like that. I said this at the beginning. You are not alone. I was really scared of getting in. Like the very, I think I even told you this, Aimee. I did not start using the chamber, I'm going to say, like consistently and religiously. I actually did it this morning. Actually, right before this, I was in the chamber. But until January hit, I created with Aimee like a resolution. I wanted to feel better. I wanted more energy. Just for background, you guys, I have very low testosterone levels naturally. My hormones, I mean, I'm in perimenopause. Like I just found out my FSH is high. I'm like close to menopausal. I'm like, what the? I'm not even 43 yet. And so I'm freaking out about all these things. And energy does not come natural for me right now unless I am actually taking care of my body. So in January, actually December, I was like, okay, Aimee, how do I want to get over this fear. I'm so scared of this. My fears are, what if I get stuck inside and no one's home? Genuinely, because you zip yourself up twice. There's like two zippers in this thing. And what if, like, I actually had asked you, what if, can the zipper thing break? Can the tie break from inside? You're like, no. And what if something happens? What if I can't get out? What if they can't get to me and I lose oxygen and I turn the thing, whatever it is? And is it safe? There are just all of these what ifs. And will I feel claustrophobic? The first time I got in, it was a little uncomfortable, right? Because it's new, and maybe even the second time. But when I started doing it consistently, not only did I very quickly get over how I felt, uh, but let me just say, the energy that I have had, I've told you this, Aimee. You guys, I'm not getting paid a damn thing for saying this. I'm literally letting you know the energy I felt. I have felt, I do feel in my life. None of my hormone levels have changed. I have not started hormone replacement therapy yet. And it is, that's the only thing I can kind of point to, is taking care of my body, being in this. And I want you to, we're going to talk about today how it's working in the body and why people might feel certain ways. But first, do you find it common, Aimee? And what do you have to say to people who are terrified of this thing? What do you
yeah,
say? Because you saw it was all over that reel, all the
yeah.
comments.
So I should tell people that for 2 years, a couple years ago, 2021 to 2024, I ran a med spa, a hyperbaric med spa. So it was 3 of these chambers and a few other modalities. I have a collection of modalities that I think are necessary. So I dealt with a lot of people all the time. So this isn't just a few examples. It's many, many examples of people saying, I could never get in there. They immediately equate it to an MRI, which, if anybody's ever, because it's long, tubular, whatever, if it's
Yep.
an MRI, the thing about MRIs is they're like, don't move. for 1 hour. You're not supposed to move. You're strapped down. They put you in, and it's very close to your body. And so we're going to talk about different types of chambers, but this one is a 32-inch chamber. And now I just want to say, anybody who is watching this one, this podcast, and you can see this chamber, I have it pressurized right now. I have it turned off. There's a mechanism we can do to do that, which we do at shows, kind of stuff. But I wanted people to see the full scope of it when
So
it is
pressurized means
yeah,
inflated for
it's
people
inflated.
who aren't
Yeah.
watching.
Right.
Okay.
So it's at its full potential here.
Yeah.
And if it was deflated, of course, it's got more of a kind of a softer look to it. There's a frame in there which helps hold that frame together. So, but I think it's important because when you come in and you see it not inflated,
Yeah.
again, you're like, how am I going to get in here? This particular chamber, again, I'm sorry if you cannot see this, but this chamber is the same chamber that LeBron James has. So
Oh,
if LeBron James and many
how
guys,
tall is he?
well, he's tall. I don't know, but he's tall and he's big. And then I would say a handful of guys I've worked with, our linebackers, one particularly, Derek Nottie with the Chiefs, big guy, gets right in this thing. So it's surprisingly, so the answer is it's surprisingly bigger than you think, which is what you might say. And I don't have a percentage. I haven't been taking notes, but I'm always like at least 98% of my people, because I can think of maybe 2 ever who couldn't really finish and didn't come back. And that's because they're dealing with the anxiety of what fear is, right? And really fear and claustrophobia is a feeling of a lack of control. And so one of the things that you hit on is when we do talk about how you can control this chamber from inside, that starts to go away a little bit. And so I didn't necessarily share that always with everybody who came to my med spa, because I didn't need everybody trying to run their own therapy. But if they were very nervous, I was like, listen, if you're feeling this way, all you have to do is this. We talk about that little valve that releases the air.
Yes.
And then brings down the pressure, and you're out. And so that's a huge difference. And then I would say, I definitely handheld some people, but I say we because I had a great staff, but me too. Part of the experience, if you're going to go to a place and do this, is making sure that there are good technicians there that have been trained. And we might mention that again, because I think it's very important. But part of training isn't just how to run the chamber. It's how to work with somebody who might be afraid. So I would spend time with people, and then you hit the nail on the head. Once we got Heidi in this thing, basically, you guys, I called her and I said, hey, your 6 months is coming up. How you doing? And she admitted, not so good. She's busy. She was busy. And I said, well,
I didn't lie.
I
wanted to lie.
Right. I know, but she didn't. And so hyperbarics, we'll also talk about this. Frequency and consistency is the biggest 2 terms you're going to hear with it. You cannot it's just like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym one time and walk out like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Heidi Lane. You have to go. It has to be part of your life, and you have to figure out what that is. So we started working on the option, or the ways that we were going to have Heidi do this regularly. And what I would say about that is that anybody who's been a nervous flyer before, everybody knows when you do something regularly, it gets easier because you learn it, you understand it, you're educated, when the plane is shaking that it's actually meant to do that, so that it is going to carry you safely, And so all those things combined, it's really talking someone through, explaining, how they can operate the chamber, not being fearful. And then honestly, when people start to see results, they're totally fine with it, because
they're sold.
I don't have migraines anymore.
Like,
I'm going in this thing. So are there some people who can't do it? Yes. I had a client once, he got in the chamber, I turned around to do something, I turned back around, and he was out. And I was like, whoa, that man ended up buying one for his home. So,
oh my gosh,
I love those stories of the people who say, I could never, and then this is all I do. And I mean, you're very similar to that, because you did it because the day that I delivered it, you really had to take advantage, and I needed to see you do it. I didn't want to just like, here's the chamber and never see you and never help you. But then, you had your own fears and you wanted to wait, and then we talked through it, and here we are. Now you're like a professional.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to my mind is I don't know if it's a saying, but the idea, the truth that the things that we fear are actually only things we don't understand.
Mhm.
And so that non-understanding actually creates the fear. So one of my hopes for today's podcast is to help alleviate some of the fears by way of educating you on what's actually happening. And just to speak to a couple of the things that Aimee touched on, size of the chamber. Sometimes size doesn't matter, but in this case, it does. It really does. And it's perfect. That's what they all say.
Well, let's talk about the size. So
Well,
the example you showed was you and Ruby.
I've
Um,
had cash
and
though too.
you had both them in
Yes.
there, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, it's
It,
sizable.
it is. It's actually the size is perfect. It works out really well. So and then the other thing though that I want to touch on with some of the fears that I saw, and it's very real, right? Like there was a tragedy not too long ago where a 5-year-old boy in Michigan lost his life
Yeah.
inside of a chamber. Now I don't have specifics. You've kind of explained. So I want to say this too. First off, like my heart absolutely breaks for the family and everyone affected by it.
Yeah.
And also, Aimee, I love how you explained it to me because right away I called you and I was like, oh man, is my life like, should I not do this? Like, what's happening? I'm getting all these people sending me things online. And do you mind explaining the difference?
Yeah. So really quick, I want to just give the simple version. Here's the thing. I am a layman's person, just like probably the majority of people listening to this. I have my own autoimmune condition. I learned about hyperbarics. I dove into this space on my own. I've advocated for myself, and that's how I've ended up here.
Mhm.
So I am not medically trained. This is not medical advice, all of that stuff. But there's nothing that says you can't go out and try to teach yourself and educate yourself on anything, right?
Can I interject real fast to that? I think it's important for anyone listening. If you're like, okay, well, how do we know that this is real stuff? We are going to be putting links to
Yep.
resources that Aimee leans on and has learned from inside of the show notes. So do not forget to go click on those, do your own research. Aimee, thanks for saying that. Go ahead.
And so what I do have for credibility, which I was getting to, is that I have done hyperbaric technician training, right? So there is training out there for being a hyperbaric technician. There's training for being a safety director if you're running a facility, if you're somebody who is thinking about bringing this into your facility. And so I do have an extensive amount of training in this particular space. And so really quick, that said, I don't like to get into the weeds of there's so much. There's just so much when you dive into any of this stuff. When you're talking about methylene blue, or when we're talking about colostrum, or we're talking about red light therapy. I mean, there's lots of details there, and yeah, if you want to go down that and learn every little bit of it, you can. But sometimes we have to just understand the simplicity. And so the simplicity of hyperbaric. Let me just start there. Hyperbaric, hyper is increased, baric is pressure, right? So increased pressure is what you're getting from a chamber.
Mm.
And this is one of the other misnomers that comes out a lot is well, where's the oxygen? How I'm not getting oxygen. And I'm not avoiding the question at hand, which is about the tragedy in Michigan. And we are going to get there,
We'll
but I
get
need
there.
to
Yeah. Let first. Yeah.
process.
This is helpful.
Right. So anyway, where is the oxygen? Because of course it's hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So
Mhm.
yes, in the original day of all of the conditions that are approved for with insurance and the medical stuff that we know about at really big wound care facilities and stuff like that, they're using 100% oxygen. If you go into Google and you say what is hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it says it's 100% oxygen with increased pressure. Where we've come in the last 30 years is to have multiple different ways to use hyperbarics, but the foundation of hyperbarics is still an increased amount of pressure is going to drive the increase of oxygen into your blood plasma and into your tissues. So here we are. We have this chamber. And in the air right now, we are breathing 21% oxygen. And to be very honest, until I got into this business 10 years ago, I never ran around saying, oh, we have 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen in our little atmosphere around us. We don't think about it like that.
I had no clue. I didn't think about it.
Right. But we've
The
all,
more you know.
yeah, well, and we all talk about, I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's something like you can live, 3 weeks without food and something like 3 days without water, and it's like 3 minutes without oxygen, right?
Wow.
So those are like these like must haves in
Yeah.
order for our body to live. So clearly oxygen plays a very important part in our life and our living, and we can imagine everything in our body, right? So we're breathing 21% oxygen, and by virtue of what I just explained, the very simplicity, you add pressure, you increase oxygen drive into your tissues. That's what you're doing. So in this environment,
And that's how, so that's what heals. I don't think we've even hit on that yet. Correct?
that's what we're going to talk about. Yes. So
Okay.
when you increase that level of oxygen concentration in the body, it's going to go where it's needed in the body. A body is very smart. It knows what parts of us aren't working and what needs more, and it's going to support the cellular healing at those locations. And so again, we will get back to that first question. This is just a process to understand it all, because
I actually think it's good. Go through exactly what hyperbarics are, and then yes, we all trust. We're going to get to the question. Stay tuned for that.
Exactly. So it's important to understand so yes, you're getting your oxygen. Oxygen is currently carried on your red blood cell by hemoglobin in the body. And the plasma, if I had a screen here, and I guess this is good because I don't have a screen. So whether you're watching or listening, you're just going to have to visualize a big blood vessel has a mass of liquid in it, which is called plasma. And then in that is red blood cells with hemoglobin, and our oxygen attaches to that. And then the plasma carries that all through the body. And that's how we get the oxygen that we are getting all the time, right? And we've heard people have low oxygen, high oxygen. So there's lots of reasons for why that happens. When we add hyperbaric pressure greater than atmospheric pressure that we live at, when that increases, we are driving more oxygen. It's actually going into the blood plasma. So now you've got, it's not attaching to the red blood cells the way we know this to be. It's actually filling up that blood plasma. So you have a super dose. It really is a dose. Oxygen is a drug, if nobody knew that. And it's super dosing your body with oxygen and carrying it everywhere. And sometimes, most of the time, that plasma can sometimes even reach further than the red blood cells it's carrying. Wow. And that's why somebody with like a neuropathy will see a great response from something like hyperbarics, because they really weren't ever getting good oxygen down to the tip of their toes or, their fingers or whatever their issue was. So am I explaining it a little bit?
You are. So this is really awesome. So I knew from what you had told me and the research I had done, I didn't do deep scientific research, but what I knew is that hyperbaric, the pressure drives more oxygen to your blood, and it stopped there. But actually visualizing exactly how you broke it down and how the oxygen's getting to the plasma, it all makes sense now. And what's interesting, oh my gosh, I when I was in the chamber, I got out and I told Alexa, I'm like sorry that let me do not disturb my computer here. It was very loud. I had little backstory, yesterday I went and I did ozone therapy. So ozone therapy, because I have Epstein-Barr that is, in my system still. There was another viral infection like showing up in my system. And so the doctor said, hey, if you want to like really wipe these things out fast, which I've since learned you can't really wipe out a virus, you kind of control it and keep it dormant, but go do ozone therapy. And I actually said, does hyperbaric chamber work? And I have not been as consistent this last week. I have not been. And he said, yeah. He said, it's a very similar thing, just the ozone therapy. What they're essentially pulling your blood out through a tube, you guys. They spin it in an egg, drive something into it that adds an extra oxygen molecule, and then they inject it back into your body. And I did 7 passes of that yesterday, right? And so and then I did it with a binder. So a binder is like a pill for anyone who doesn't know. The binder is supposed to bind to the toxins in your body and help carry them out. So this was the doctor's kind of recommendation. I said, can I do hyperbaric chamber with it? Absolutely. Yes, do it, do it. That is like the best case scenario. So today, before this podcast, I was in my chamber, your chamber that I'm borrowing. I was in it. And I'm not kidding you. My fingertips were like tingling. I've never, Aimee, I got out and I told Alexa, oh, my Alexa's got on. I'm like, I felt the vibrate. It was the craziest thing ever. And so I'm like, my body is oxygenated right now. It's amazing. But also, sorry, I'm still talking, but I actually have, I get blue fingertips. So Raynaud's runs in my family. My fingertip body temperature, I was just realizing a couple weeks ago, I'm like, it's so good. Like they're always like the same temperature as my body. It's because of this, isn't it?
Yes, and that's actually one of my favorite things to hear, because I'm so sorry, this is such a disjointed conversation, but
no, guess what? Let me just tell you this.
I know, right?
The best conversations are the ones that flow naturally. So let's just go with it. We're going to get back to the question.
It all comes back together. It all comes back together. But what I was going to say is that when people start hearing about this, they start thinking, okay, I hear it could help this, it could help that. So they come to me and they're like, well, could it help this? And I say, yeah. And I kind of explain this mechanism of action, and it really can help anything if your body is optimized. But what's interesting is a lot of people come in because they're trying to fix one thing, and they always report something else, like your fingertips. Like, would you ever have said that to me? Would you ever have said, oh, I have this, and I hate it when my, whatever. I fear Raynaud's because it scares me to think that I couldn't touch my fingertips.
No.
But I know people have had it. But my point is saying this is that this is what always happens when somebody gets consistent. And you guys, Heidi got really consistent in January.
I did.
Accountability partner. And she got really consistent. And so she's seeing the results. And so when we talk about protocols, we'll get to that, about the 40 session protocol and like how often do you have to do it and stuff like that. But, getting started, you were being very consistent, and you've said many things to me that were never the reasons that you even wanted to do hyperbarics. And I love it, because that is what is really telling people it's doing something inside. We have this block in our head that if we don't see it, it's not happening. If we don't feel it, it's not happening. I haven't seen $1 million, but I know it's out there.
Yes.
But, and so these little things that you're saying is exactly what I love to hear, because I'm like, hyperbarics.
Yeah. I love
it. I commented on your ozone thing. She gets lots of comments. I'm sure she doesn't see all mine, but I was like, HBOT will support this.
I saw it.
Right before we do ozone, and then go jump in the chamber.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. So just hopefully everyone listening is getting a picture of how this heals. I also want to bring up, before you and I had ever talked, I had heard of friends of mine who had seen a plastic surgeon, say, or any kind of a surgeon in LA, and a requirement to work with this doctor was that you fly in. It's a 2-week thing, and they required 5 days of hyperbaric chamber before and days after, before they would allow somebody to fly home. And so, because apparently the healing of a surgery is massively sped up with hyperbarics. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And, this is one of the challenges we have with trying to see what's covered and what isn't covered. There's just not a lot covered by insurance, because they require a lot of studies, clinical studies out there that are going to say yes, 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 and then we'll pay doctors for it. It just isn't happening, and it probably isn't going to happen. But what's frustrating is that wound healing, severe wound healing, people that go into fires and need skin grafts and all that stuff, they're put right into a hyperbaric chamber. And of course that's covered. It's very, very intense. But we should understand that if we can heal a big wound, we're probably going to be able to heal a smaller wound, like a surgery. And what's good about this particular bit in this podcast is this is the first part of my story. With hyperbarics. And so I said I had an autoimmune. I have Crohn's disease. I've had it for over 20 years. in 2015, I had 8 inches removed from my colon. I had a colon resection. Right. And that was from years of medicine and inflammation and having Crohn's. And so what happened was, by that point, I already had become friends with the manufacturer, which I like, I have a couple of good partners out there, and they sent me a chamber to use before my surgery and after.
Oh,
And we'll get into another part. We're going to go back to the oxygen because that's a big question. But I just want people to know that I did not use any supplemental oxygen when I had it. I just was doing ambient air, the 21% oxygen. I went in the chamber, and then I did my surgery. I went back and I did my chamber as often as I could afterwards. 6 weeks afterwards, I went and I had a colonoscopy, and my gastroenterologist, I'll never forget it. He said, if I didn't know that you had had surgery, I wouldn't be able to tell. There is no visible scarring in your resection. So 8
really?
inches was taken out. And I said, oh, I'm doing hyperbarics.
Wow.
I was still so new at the time. All I knew it could do was maybe help with wounds. Like, I didn't even understand, right? Because this is 2015 and I was still behind the curve, but this is when my journey with hyperbarics really started. So my expertise doesn't come from just going and taking a hyperbaric training and knowing a lot of the doctors and asking a lot of questions. I have my own story, and that story we're probably going to get to again. It picks back up in 2021 because at the time I thought wound healing. Okay, so yes, preloading your body is absolutely very important if you can do it. I had a client, I remember at my med spa, who came in, I don't think it was gallbladder or something like that. And she came back and she wrote to me and she said, I had this same type of surgery like 4 years ago, and my recovery this time was hands down 100% different, faster, less pain, recovery, like being back on her feet in no time, because she did the protocol of going in before and going in after. So yeah, and plastic surgeons, I mean, they love this stuff because, and so do their patients, because, to be honest, a lot of plastic surgery patients don't want you to know they're having plastic surgery.
Yeah.
And so the faster they can heal,
Yeah.
the quicker they can get back out there, right?
Take
And
off
so
that nose cast. Yep.
they love it too. But yes, you're going to have less scarring, less bruising, all of that stuff is going to heal really, really quickly. And there's lots and lots of stories of people even resolving little wounds that they had, little diabetic wounds. There's some major diabetics foot wounds and wounds that people have. And hyperbarics has saved many limbs where they have been told they're going to have to amputate, but then they do a hyperbaric situation, they save it. The best story on that actually is baby Jessica. I don't know if you remember that story. This is like in the 80s. She fell in a well.
Yes.
And yes. So baby Jessica was her name. It was all over the news. These guys, they actually went down the well and they pulled her out. Well, when she had fallen down, her leg had like gotten caught up behind her head, right? So maybe in like the splits of some version. Her leg was almost completely black, no blood flow. They were going to amputate. And a doctor there, they had a chamber and they said, no, let's put her in the chamber, and saved her leg.
No, I did not know that part of the story.
Google will tell you.
Well, what I mean, total random squirrel moment, but I was little when this happened because I was born in 82. And I thought baby Jessica fell into a whale. Like,
well, that guy just did fall into a whale a couple weeks ago.
Did you see that? Yes.
So it's totally possible.
And then spit him back out. And the friend that was filming it was like unfazed by it. He's just like, didn't even say anything.
So I know.
I mean, okay, so back.
She didn't fall into the whale, but she did fall into the well. And that story is a story I would have never known if I wasn't in this hyperbaric space, because I love to find these stories and hear these things. And sometimes if you don't know about something, it just kind of goes right over the head, right?
Yeah.
But when you do start paying attention to it, you start to hear all these kind of stories. So anyway, that's just, so back to, you were asking about preloading and then going through. Yes, that is the beginning of my personal journey. I was already aware of hyperbarics. I was the development director for the National Autism Association in 2005. And they were having extreme success with kids using hyperbarics to help either fully recover from autism or at least advance in the progression of in a positive way, you know, for some of the issues they were dealing with. And so I was in it for that perspective, but that's again really all I knew, and I didn't even have kids, so I really wasn't spending a lot of time on it. So when it starts to get personal is when we all start to get loud about,
Yeah.
hey, this
Oh
really
yeah.
could.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was
What were
going
you?
to say this. Well, this kind of leads us to the next question, which is the oxygen question. You can
Well,
have
real
supplemental
quick though,
oxygen.
I actually just want to emphasize that for everyone listening. She just hit there's such a wide range of things. And you just heard her say it, and I'm saying it again because I want you to hear it. There's such a wide range of healing that can happen with a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber, right? And
Right.
from wounds to, you know, systemic inflammation like I was having, to supporting your immune system, to brain health and brain healing, to which is connected to autism and different literally everything, because our entire body needs oxygen, and if we are filling our plasma with more oxygen, our tissues are able to heal. Did I just put a
Correct.
nutshell
Yeah, because
bow
the
on that?
oxygen we're breathing now is being consumed by working our heart and
Yeah.
working our lungs and working our brain. And, you know, we're consuming it now all the time. So if
Yep.
we're already having to use everything that we're taking in just to live, you can
Mm.
understand why a part of the body is being kind of rejected or neglected, is what I would say. And so when you start to add the extra, then you work all the parts that need to work, and then the body's like, hey, you know, my foot's hurting.
Mhm.
And the oxygen goes whoop, right down there. And I think one thing that we should say that's also a very simple thing that I like people to know is that we've heard it before. Inflammation, they say inflammation is the root of all disease. There's arguments. Is it really? Does it really cause it? No. But does it exacerbate it? Yes. And the challenge here is our bodies are inflamed. Your brain is inflamed. That's why it has a problem. Your gut is inflamed. That's why it has a problem. By the way, your gut and your brain are very connected. Your ankle is swollen and inflamed, and that's why it hurts with arthritis and all of these types of additional, you know, those type of diseases,
Mhm.
MS or something like that. So controlling inflammation is what everybody's doing. That's what anybody who's ever taken prednisone, it immediately brings down inflammation in your body. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't get into all the exactual, the histamines and the cytokines and all the little extra words for why that is. But the simplicity is really what you need to understand, and it's controlling inflammation. And when you control inflammation, you allow your body to heal naturally, because our
Mm.
bodies know how to heal. But if they're constantly fighting a wall of inflammation, they're
Yeah.
not going to heal. So
Ooh.
that is one thing I would also say is hyperbarics isn't here. It is not a cure. It is not a cure. It does not cure autism. It does not cure Crohn's disease. It does not cure migraines. It does not cure anything. It puts your body in an optimized state so that it can heal itself. And
Yeah.
if I explain that better, it's really all about inflammation and controlling inflammation. It's so, so important to control
I
inflammation.
love that. I love that. Thank you for explaining that. That was perfectly said. Okay, so now can we get back to the question of the 5-year-old in
Yes.
Michigan who
Yes.
died? Just as a reminder, if you're just now coming in, there were some questions and some people DMing me saying, "Is the hyperbaric chamber that you have is it safe?" Because I just heard of someone who died inside of one in a medical facility. So now we can kind of answer that.
Yes, there's one more piece to answer that, and that
Oh,
is
okay.
whether or not you're using any additional oxygen. So as I share with you guys, I did for my my healing for my surgery, I didn't use any additional oxygen, which means I was breathing nothing additional outside of the air that is in our atmosphere. You can use an oxygen concentrator, which is something that it takes this air that we're breathing, it filters out the nitrogen and puts out a higher concentration of oxygen. There are also chambers, as we've already talked about, in medical facilities and wound care clinics, and those that are approved for insurance that are using 100% oxygen. Now, there's a variety of ways to do this. There are people who are using tank oxygen. The difference is in this particular answer for about this particular case in Troy, Michigan, is how the chamber is pressurized. Not
Mm.
what you're breathing, but how are we pressurizing this chamber? This chamber
Mm.
behind me right now, and if you're not seeing it, I have the chamber pressurized fully, so it's inflated. It's like a balloon. We're blowing into it. It is just air. It is ambient air. It is literally this stuff that I'm sitting in right here. That particular chamber was actually pressurized with oxygen.
Okay.
And that, as we know, oxygen itself is not going to ever start a fire, not flammable like that. But if there's a flame, a static, anything that would ignite it, the oxygen will definitely exacerbate the fire. As we know, when we see the fires in California or even in South
Yeah.
Carolina right now, the wind is shifting, and it's just all of that air and oxygen is just, it's fueling all of those fires. And
Mm.
so that particular incident, I can't comment really on anything except for what's been put out there. But we do know it was a chamber that was what we would consider like a hard-sided chamber, which means it can go to higher pressures. And we'll talk
Okay.
about pressures later. It goes to higher pressures. And it was a chamber that was filled and pressurized with 100% oxygen. It did not explode, which is kind of the narrative, was that there was an explosion. And
Yes.
actually, there was a fire inside of the chamber. And so again, if you have a fire, so something ignited that. So the investigation will tell us exactly why, and it could be a variety of things. That child may have brought in an object that they shouldn't have brought in. There are a lot of restrictions when you're talking about that environment. No jewelry, no lotion, no perfume, only 100% cotton clothes. You typically are going to get changed out of your clothes and into a gown, just a different type of a setting.
Mm.
That child may have had something. I'm talking a piece of paper, like you can't take a book in. That changing a
Wow.
paper could create static, oxygen. Now you have a big.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so, or there's grounding, straps that you're supposed to wear when you're doing that kind of stuff, again, to ground you, to reduce the static, right? To make sure there's no static, just like we have a grounder in our houses and stuff like that if they're hit by lightning. And so, anyway, we don't know the results of that situation, and it will come out. So that chamber and that incident, in my opinion, carries a much higher risk than the chamber that you've been using, simply because of the way that they're pressurized.
Okay. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. You had kind of mentioned that to me. Again, you guys, two different chambers. The medical one, it is oxygen to pressurize. This one is ambient air to pressurize, right?
Right.
So now, real quick, and I know I'm running out of
I know.
time before people start showing up here, but I do have a question. So when I have the oxygen compressor that feeds through, I put a mask on. For anyone who's like, well, Heidi, you're wearing an oxygen mask. How is that safe? Can you explain the difference?
Well, still you're pressurized with the ambient air.
Okay.
You're also getting a low percentage of oxygen coming in
Yep.
through that. And the other thing is these chambers there's a consistent flow of air. So there's not a buildup of that oxygen
Got it.
because there's a constant airflow in the chamber.
Got
And
it.
that's
Okay.
true of all chambers. All chambers are going to have a consistent flow, because if not, you would be breathing out carbon dioxide, and then we'd all die from carbon dioxide.
Yeah. Yeah. And the consistent flow
But
is
it's a
pulling ambient air for the flow. It's not pulling from my oxygen compressor for the flow.
correct,
I'm
correct.
breathing that in and breathing out, carbon dioxide. So,
Yeah, so
okay.
that's just important. Whenever you're in any kind of enclosed environment, you want a consistent flow of air, just like airplanes. People don't understand that, but there's a full cycle of air every like 2 minutes. There's new
I,
air.
yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. It would make sense though.
People don't know that about this, because they feel like they're getting in this thing, they're getting zipped up, and now they're just stuck. And there's really a lot of other components to it. When one of those is that you're getting fresh air all the
I
time.
love that. Okay, cool. So I want to read one of the success stories that I saw on, like, I love that you brought up LeBron James uses this. I've also heard Michael Phelps has one. I mean, I feel like a lot of uh, high end athletes have these in their home, right? I know a lot of people with neurological conditions have seen improvement and have them in their home. But there was let me find it. I love this. So one of the comments directly from my post, Fiona Jane 0225 said, my special needs son had several months of HBOT and I took him to UK for it. He had a stroke and grand mal seizures. It worked wonders, helped the seizure issue. He started walking better and his speech started to improve. He had the stroke in utero. People in UK with MS have them in their backyards. And HBOT also helps them with multiple ailments. I loved that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. So, this idea of having a chamber at home is because people have had a lot of positive experiences. So, what these manufacturers have had to do is find something that runs at a little bit of a lower pressure,
yeah.
runs on ambient air, takes away some of the risks that would be mitigated if you were in a facility and someone's watching you, like with anything
Yeah.
that you would do medical.
Yeah.
And they've created these chambers. And so, while these chambers are not exactly the same as a medical chamber, and you would need to do far more in one of these chambers than
Yeah.
a medical chamber. These become kind of the maintenance. So if you go in and you're at a medical facility and you're getting healed after 10, 20 dives, you could then go home and start to do regular treatments in a low pressure, mild
Mm.
chamber and start to carry on those results. You can also, I do want to mention, this is going to be one of the links that we share, a study that came out just a couple years ago from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where they took individuals and they used this chamber. They used ambient air only, so no additional oxygen. It's a 1.3 environment. They did 10 sessions over a period of 2 weeks, and those were 90-minute sessions. And at the end of those 10 sessions, they were able to show stem cell mobilization naturally occurring in those people's bodies, right? And
Wow.
stem cells are what help rebuild tissues and stuff at a cellular level.
Wow.
And so we know about people who go and get stem cells shot up. If you don't like shots, then this is the way to go with the
Yeah.
hyperbaric chamber, because you don't have to do stem cells. You don't have to do ozone. Ozone is a needle. Woo.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, so that is a really significant study that we're starting to build off of with
Mm.
other studies that are showing the efficacy of a mild chamber, because there's going to be people out there who are like, well, that doesn't even do anything. I'm here
Yeah.
to tell you, if you start to increase atmospheric pressure, you start to increase the drive of oxygen into the body. How you'll respond and when you'll respond, it's just a matter of time.
Okay.
But I know, as someone who ran a clinic for 2 years only using mild chambers and having so many success stories, this chamber absolutely can make a difference in someone's life. And so do the high pressure chambers. But you have
Yeah.
to understand there's different ones out there.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So I want to get into, there's a handful, all of that was really great. There's a handful of questions. This might be like a speed round because I want to try and get them an answer to these things before we have to wrap up. But one of them you actually just answered. I want to make sure there's nothing else. Someone did ask, how does this help without actual oxygen? Because we're saying we got to drive it into the blood. There's no actual pure oxygen. You're essentially saying it's the pressure that will drive it in.
The power
You'll
is
just
in the
need to be
pressure.
consistent.
Yep, the power is in the pressure with
Ah,
hyperbaric. We say
coin
that all
that.
the time. The power is in the pressure.
I
You couldn't,
love that.
and you cannot do it any other way than to do hyperbaric pressure. You cannot
Yeah.
increase the oxygen in the ways that we're talking about without a hyperbaric chamber. It's all of
I,
it.
Okay, that's great. Another person had asked, how do you get a doctor's prescription? And do you need a doctor's prescription? Which I'm going to pair with the other question that was asked a lot. Obviously, we can have them in home because you have them in home, but are there options for those of us that can't have them at home? So,
Yeah.
how do I get a prescription for it? Do I need a prescription? And where do I go to get this done?
Yeah. So this is kind of falls in the safety realm of things. We talked about you looking at some crazy chambers from China earlier.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff out there on the market. We want people to be safe. When we're talking to our clinics that are having this type of an offering, there are a few manufacturers out there that are actually what we term FDA compliant. And what that means is they meet a standard of safety testing. They are testing these chambers at 1.5 times the pressure that you'll ever operate it at. Just to make sure that it's not going to have any infraction, a burst or anything like that. Again, the mild chambers might cause an ear discomfort. Gosh forbid something like that happened, but they are tested extremely well. And those that are not FDA approved, and even the hard chambers that are not what we call ASME PVHO approved, that's a whole nother conversation. They're not tested, and they're not safe. They're not safe
Got
until
it.
we know they're tested. So when the FDA does approve them, it becomes, that's when we get into writing a prescription. And so in order to get, it's a medical, class 2 medical device. And just like any other medical device, you need a prescription to get it. And that's what that is. And so, yes, if you're using an FDA cleared chamber, which is what I want everyone to be using,
Yeah.
everyone. You need to
Yes.
get that. If your doctor's not willing to do it, there are naturopath doctors out there that do, holistic health and stuff like that, who understand it more. And then, of course, a business like mine who helps people get these into their homes. I work with a doctor who can write that prescription as well. So
Okay.
they do a full intake, ask you all the questions, and make sure that you're fit for hyperbarics.
Okay, I love that. Okay,
There's a
next
name
question.
before that, but I don't remember what it was. Something about an oxygen, but
I think where can somebody find, like, what do they need to Google? Because I think
that's
people
right.
are a little lost. It's like,
Yeah,
do I
absolutely.
search doctor? Do I search wellness? What do they
No,
search to find a place?
right, 100%. And that's actually why I opened the location that I did for a couple of years, was to bring hyperbarics to my area, because there was
Mm,
nowhere to go. And these can get expensive, and I think we'll touch on that really briefly, but there's a lot of ranges. I do think we're hitting affordable options, but this particular one can be pricey. So going to a place can be a way to mitigate cost if you're not ready to invest, right? Certainly, if you do all the math, it is far more beneficial and economical to invest in the chamber. You're going to use it way more than you ever would going to a place. Plus, you, in your own space, the comfort of your own home, and you're not getting in your car, and you're not driving somewhere. You're not, sometimes you're driving an hour to go do this because we don't
yeah.
have enough places offering it. But yes, I would always type in hyperbarics near me in Google, see what comes up. Make sure you've got someone that's trained. Anybody listening to this, if they want to find a place and send it to me, I will give them my honest opinion if I think it's a go or a no go. Unfortunately, we are in the wellness space, and we have a lot of people doing hyperbarics right now who actually don't know what they're doing. And I wouldn't want someone to have a bad experience, because the one thing we didn't touch on, and maybe you could even share this, is what that's like when you're getting pressurized for the first time.
Yeah. Well,
And
so the next question is, what does it feel like inside of the chamber? Like, there are a lot of people saying, how does it feel? How does it feel? How does it feel?
yeah,
When I'm in it, except for today, because I was like really feeling the blood flow through my
yeah,
fingertips. But once you're pressurized, you don't feel anything. I can sleep
feels
in
like you're
there.
at
I
home.
haven't even brought this up, but truly, like today, I slept in it for 30 minutes. I literally was like, I'm not going to touch my phone. I leave it outside this time. I slept. Sometimes, though, I bring my phone in, I bring my work. I use that as my time to get my stuff done. And just to be clear, Aimee,
Yeah.
that safe? Tell
Yeah, I was
everybody.
gonna say, yep, we're going in it. We had two questions out of this one. So, all right. So the first question was about, what was the first
First
question?
question is, how does it feel?
Oh, how does it
And
feel?
maybe
Let's
you
talk about
can,
how it feels. Yes.
yeah,
All right. So, yes, when you're going under pressure, when you're doing a mild chamber, it's about 10 feet below sea level is where you're at with that. And of course, increased pressures take you to a lower depth. When you're going through that change, your ears will fill up and be plugged or clogged, or whatever the term is someone wants to use. And we tell you, clear your ears early and often. You want to
Mhm.
clear your ears through that process, because if you're not actively clearing your ears, you're just building up pressure. And if you've
Mhm.
ever been on a plane with a little baby, they cry when you land, because when you land is when you start to experience that pressure difference. And this is where
Mhm.
you guys might understand, is that you clear your ears. Your ear fills up, you clear it, you're like, oh, we're landing. Babies don't know how to clear their ears. So we say, give them a bottle, something that's going to make them swallow and help them clear their ears. But that is often where that drives from. They're not bad little babies. They're just stressed. Their ears are
Mhm.
stressed. It's called barotrauma.
Mhm.
And if you're not careful, you could blow an eardrum. Now, that doesn't happen in this. I mean, I like to say the risk, but it's so low, because we're
Yeah.
not talking about a deep pressure here. But again, if you just relieve the pressure, it's like a balloon. If the balloon's getting too much, if you let a little bit of air out, it has room to expand more, right? Let a little bit of air out, expand more. So every time you're clearing your ears, you're going to be able to pressurize. And once you get to equalization, like you said, it's about 3 minutes. Then it's just a constant airflow, and you don't even feel the difference. So that does not happen through the duration of your chamber experience. As far as your safety question,
Mhm.
Heidi mentioned bringing her phone in, sometimes maybe her laptop, iPads, I don't know, great for kids. Here's what I'm going to say about that. When you're learning all of this stuff, absolutely, we're like, no electronics, right? You're in this high oxygen environment. Well, again, if we were talking about that medical environment, no way, no way, never even ever would that
Yeah.
ever be considered or allowed. In this chamber, it's almost like you're in an airplane, which is a
Yeah.
pressurized environment, just not pressurized the same way. The danger, honestly, the inherent danger is your phone itself. Could your phone, and you guys have heard probably about a phone that caught on fire in a plane or something like that, and then that, they blow it out or whatever. It's the technology of the phone. If anything you had in there started a fire, yeah, you do need to open that up and get out quickly and, try to dampen it out with your hands. But the danger isn't as much the hyperbaric chamber itself. I have a client who called me one time. Her husband has a stroke. They own a chamber. He's doing so good. I love his story. Different day, different time. I'll tell it. But she called me one time because there was a tornado warning, and she was like, "Hey, he's in the chamber. Should I take him out?" And I was like, "Yes, there's a tornado coming." Like, you want to be really cognizant of other things going on in your life and not just blame the hyperbaric chamber for that. So I do take my phone in. I do believe it's very safe. Again, we're in this ambient air environment. If I had an old phone, if it was overheating a lot, stuff like that, I'd be like, I don't think so. I'd probably need to get a new phone anyway. So that's my answer on electronic.
I like that. Oh, yeah. And it makes it easy for anyone who's like, I wouldn't have time. Yes, you can make time for anything that's a priority. And number two, you can actually do while you're in there if you want to. Okay, 2 more questions. The next question, how many sessions do you need to see results?
Yeah. So the original protocol, and this comes out of Amen clinics a lot, is 40 sessions in 30 days. That is a lot. That is 2 sessions a day at 60 minutes each, 5 days a week. Take your weekends off. That's a lot, because that's what they've seen. People who can really slam in those 40 sessions see the most results. I'll go back to going to the gym. If you go into the gym and for 4 weeks you go 5 days a week, you're probably going to notice something at the end of that. If you go 1 day every one of those weeks, which is 4 times, you're maybe not going to notice anything. Very, very similar when it comes to hyperbaric. So we do recommend 60-minute sessions. And the reason for the breaks, and there is some ongoing studies right now, is to understand that when you go into the chamber, you get all this oxygen. You now have satisfied the oxygen that you can't get anymore. At some point, you're just at your level of saturation.
Yeah.
If you have a sponge, right, and you're pouring water on it, eventually water runs off of it because the sponge can't hold any more water. You get out and you deplete that, and then you go back in for your next dose. And so that I could equate to like taking Advil. You take Advil for 4 hours, you're good. All of a sudden it wears off. You go take another Advil. Now, don't take the Advil because it's bad for you. But anyway, that's the same idea, is that you have this dosing, and for about 4 hours is what it takes to deplete all of that extra oxygen that you have, and then you would go back in. So 40 sessions is a big protocol. If you want to go in and address something right away, if you've got migraines or an injury, I say no less than 3. 3, you'll start to feel something physiological, whether it's sleeping better or not. No less than 5, really, if you really want to see some change. And then it just depends on what your response is. And for average health and wellness, for me, I do this. I do 3 to 4 times a week, which is, I think, the guidance I gave you. Now, you went crazy and you're doing it a lot.
Yeah.
But 3 to 4 times a week at an hour, and you're going to know, your body is going to tell you, you're going to miss it.
Yeah. I know we're short on time, but I want to add, like, we did not say this. You had mentioned to me, hey, sometimes when people do that chamber at night, they'll notice a burst of energy. So maybe start in the morning, right? Until you kind of get used to it. I definitely do notice, I feel just good. I feel energetic when I do them. So that is a thing too, that I'll add for anyone. Like, what time of day? Really?
Well, what
and
time of day?
So, yeah.
And the thing about that, really quick, is that some people, when you're first going into hyperbarics, your body is in overdrive. Your cell energy is overworked because it's like, oh my gosh, we have all this oxygen. Now we can do what we need to do. And that makes you feel tired. But as soon as that flips and your mitochondria is like, we are feeling good, now you're going to feel like the energy. So that could change too. All of this stuff is so independent and individualized.
That's I love it. Yeah. Okay, final question. Where do I get one, and how can I get one? That was asked a lot. So Aimee, I mean, on that reel, tons of people were like, give me a link. All right. How do they get them? And I'm going to say you.
I mean, I'm going to say me too. I am a distributor of hyperbaric chambers, and there's many people out there who do that. I really strive. I actually did work for the manufacturer at one point, so I'm a product specialist. Like, I know some real good details that I don't feel like salespeople always know. I don't even like to call myself a salesperson, but I will tell you that for me personally, I do care about people's journey. I just do. I want to hear their stories, and I want to help them, and I love it when there's success. And so I feel like I add a level of customer service that other places don't give you. And so one of the things that I think we're going to add here is a questionnaire option that people can fill out if you guys are interested in talking about, budget and space are really important to figuring out what you can afford and what size of a chamber you can have. And, how it all works. The oxygen concentrator, you can get that later. You don't have to have it at first, things like that. So that is my role in this whole world with Next Level Oxygen. Is I've developed a method called the Vital 5 method, which is 5 modalities that are really, really great. They're great individually, they're great when combined, and they're really great when they're done into the process that I've created. But hyperbarics is a huge portion of that. I told you before, I have my own story, and I'll just give it to you very briefly. In 2021, I was still taking medication for Crohn's disease, an injectable, very expensive. I was out of my house for some hurricane restoration, and the guys cleaning my house, they blew the fuse. Anyway, no electricity. I lost all of my medicine. At that same time, I was starting my clinic. So I knew about hyperbarics, but I personally, outside of my surgery story, had not applied it. And I wanted to, but I was afraid, because why? Mainstream medicine says if you go off this drug, you're going to be sick. Okay. And I had kind of mentioned this before, and they're like, no, if you stop it, it'll be hard to get back on it, blah, blah, blah. Well, the opportunity fell into my lap. These guys blew the fuse. I lost all the medicine. I wasn't going to have it, but I did have at my availability hyperbaric chambers. And that, along with 2 other modalities I used, 100%. I went all in, and I haven't had a flare up since, and it's been almost 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Very confident, in what this can do for gut health and the rest of my body.
Wow. I've like the perfect success story to end with. That was so good.
So call me. So that's why people should call me, is because I am you. I'm
them.
I've been there. I know these stories, and I will help and do my best to make sure that they are accommodated.
And I can attest, it is very true. And so guys, the questionnaire she referred to, there's a link in the show notes. Click it. If anyone listening to this wants to learn more about hyperbaric therapy or connect with Aimee, how do they find you? Where?
Next Level.
We'll put it in the show notes, but go ahead.
Put it on the show notes, but on Instagram is the same way that I found Heidi. Is I'm at Next Level Oxygen. That's all one word. And, I try to make it fun and enjoyable and educational. So if they want to follow me there, and then, of course, just shoot me a DM. I'm always looking at that. They can go onto the website, which is nextleveloxygen.com. They can see everything that I have there. They can chat there as well. So it's pretty easy to get a hold of me.
This was so good, Aimee. This was such a great episode. It was so insightful, educational. Hopefully, anyone who was thinking about hyperbarics but was a little bit scared or fearful now has some education and understanding of it. And I hope that the people listening that didn't even know what it was have, because we're all dealing with something. We're all dealing with something. We're all aging as time goes on. Hopefully you guys heard something in the episode that really resonated with you and gave you hope that what you're dealing with is something that could be helped by hyperbarics. Aimee, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thank you just for what you've done for my life. I'm not kidding. It's been huge, and you're just a joy. Thank you. No, thank you. And to my lovely friends listening, if you found this episode helpful or insightful, please share it. Do not forget, Aimee said reach out to her with any questions you might have. Go find her on Instagram at Next Level Oxygen, or just go find who I'm following and search Oxygen or next. You'll find her. And feel free to DM me if you have questions too. I love you guys. I appreciate you, Aimee.
Yes.
Air hugs. Thank you.
Air hugs. Last time I picked you up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.